Okay, well, let's just do a quick round of where are we at? How many people we got here? That's enough to do quick introductions. Hello and where you're from as a good start. So I'm just going to call it the names as I see them. So it's probably alphabetical because that's how Teams does it. Al-Nur, forgive me if I pronounce anybody's name wrong. I apologize. So Al-Nur, where are you from?
Hi there. You could call me Musa. I'm joining here from Toronto. I work for Colliers as the business success team lead for their Canadian technology and data solutions. Nice to meet everybody here.
Likewise. And I see the name is comma.
Yeah, last name, first name. Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Thank you. Good to see you. I think you've been on one of these calls before. It's good to see you again. Danny.
Hi, everyone. I am coming from the Seattle, Washington area, and I support go-to-market for Americas across CX at Microsoft.
Awesome. Good to have you. Thank you for joining. Thanks. Daniel.
Oh,
Daniel.
Hi.
There you are.
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I'm running ISV business in Oakville. So yeah, we offer the unique solution for Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem.
He's being modest. I'm
welcome, Daniel.
One of our favorite tools, Kingsway Soft.
Thank you.
Diane, Rick, and I will introduce ourselves at the end. Jason, who are you?
Hey, yep. So I'm Jason Johnson. I'm a senior project consultant at SS&C Salentica. We offer Dynamics to wealth and asset managers, and I've been there for 3 years now.
Awesome. Jay Root. You're on mute if you're talking.
All right, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Very cool. It is Jared, just like the jewelry store, but it is pronounced, but it's spelled like perhaps my parents are hippies from back in the day. Wanted some sort of unique spelling. So thank you, Mom and Dad. That was before Google existed, and now I can no longer be anonymous on the internet. So again, Jared Colbert. I'm a solutions architect for the state of Tennessee, calling in from Nashville because you guys have a great group up here, and I love listening to you talk.
Awesome. Oh, we appreciate you being here. And I like your setup. It's nice guitars.
Thank you.
Fitting for a Nashville light.
Yeah.
Madison, I'll let you introduce yourself in just a minute as well.
Sounds good.
Over to you. Madge, I know you did a quick introduction and hello, but that was before everybody got here. So over to you.
Yep. So yeah, I lived in Toronto, Montreal, and Sherbrooke, Quebec, but now I'm back in Egypt. It's a pleasure, everyone. Majd Medina. I'm the Microsoft product manager for a company called Kinerica. We don't do Dynamics, but we're data and AI partners. So we do Microsoft Purview, data governance, Microsoft Fabric, and Copilot customizations and implementations.
Amazing. Thanks for making the commute today.
Thank you.
Nicola, Carla.
Hey guys.
Nikolai.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Nico, for sure. I'm an independent consultant focused on enterprise architecture and based out of just north of Toronto.
Excellent. Good to see you. Parth, over to you.
Hey everyone, my name is Parth Rana. I work for the SS&C Technologies. I'm an implementation analyst, and we offer dynamic solutions to our client. Good to see you all.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Richard?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Dennis. I'm the Dynamics 365 lead here at ThinkMax, based in Toronto. A lot of my ThinkMaxes, though, are based in Quebec and Montreal, but have the opportunity to travel around, as all of you do. So it's a pleasure to be here today and see you all.
Awesome. Good to hear you again. Robert.
Hey, so hi, everyone. Robert Bailey. I'm D365 consultant and Scrum Master, and I am based out of London, Ontario. Nice seeing a lot of you again.
Is like Scrum Master, is that like a rugby thing or is that?
It is. It is, but it's also a project methodology.
Just want to know what you're on about. Thanks, Robert.
Awesome. One of our future presenters that we just firmed up for December, Sean. What are you?
Oh, hey y'all. Thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, I'm Sean. I work as a tech lead and solutions architect. My main thing is I run a training program teaching people how to become solutions architects in the Power Platform. So I make YouTube videos and also run that training. It's a lot of fun. Malcolm's actually been one of our wonderful guests helping people out. So that was fun. I appreciate you coming in that one day, Malcolm.
I appreciate it. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was good to be there. And if anybody's looking for evidence as to what does an MVP do, go look at Sean's page and look at his contributions. Him and Rick as well. They epitomize what MVPs exist to do. So, Usman. I'm sorry.
Hi everyone. Yeah, that's right. It's I'm Usman, joining you guys from Toronto. I represent a company called Innovate. I'm the COO and lead data scientist here. It's my first session here. I came across this group recently, so looking forward to this session and meeting everyone here. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. And Victor.
Hello, everybody. I'm from Ottawa. I'm a consultant with federal government. I work in the M365 Power Platform space. I think it's my first time here, so happy to be here.
Well, welcome to all the newbies. And Will is our presenter today, so you might want to introduce, but I'll open the floor to you now. Do you want to introduce now, or do you want to wait till you start?
I'm in Toronto. My name's Will. I'll give a much better introduction once we actually get into things. So yeah, looking forward to chatting to you guys today.
Awesome. And then Rick and Diane and I, so you guys can introduce yourselves. I'll do one real quick. My name is Malcolm McCauley. I am in Baden, Ontario, which is like an hour and a half on a good day out to the west of Toronto. So that's where I am. Diane.
Hi, everyone. Diane Taylor. I am Manager of Implementation and Adoption at Synergy Credit Union, and I'm based out of Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Today, I'm joining you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm out on some branch visits, and I have the opportunity to co-chair with Malcolm and with Rick. Good to see you all today.
Absolutely. And Rick. I think everybody knows Rick.
Let me get back on here. Rick McCutcheon. I'm also Dynamics MVP, Business Applications MVP, helping organize this group for several years, and it's only getting bigger and better. So thank you very much. And we're having a meeting today where we're actually going to be talking about doing a live event in Toronto before the end of the year. So more information to come. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, and Diane will work through the slides here I'm not going to speak to everyone, so you can just kind of comb through them. That networking chat is how we try to open everyone, because as Rick mentioned earlier, this is a user group. We want people to feel comfortable engaging. And so you can see there's a number of user group environments or groups around in Canada, so feel free to use those. Madison is in a minute going to give us a lowdown on all the good things Doug, and so DynamicsCon Live will be in that. There's a couple of the sessions that we have coming up. So October 10th, November 14th, and December 12th. We got sessions all lined up for those, which is exciting. And then as you heard, we've got Will today, which is super excited. I'm always excited to hear Will's perspective. If you have ideas, and we'll throw a link to this in the chat as the session unfolds, we'd love to hear them. If you're interested in participating as a presenter, we'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas of things you'd like to see presented and you'd like us to try and find people, or if you know somebody who's done a great presentation and you're like, that would be great to bring to this group, we would love to hear it. So by all means, again, we'll shoot the link out, or we'll put the code in the chat so you can use that. So with that said, Madison, why don't I hand it over to you? You can take over sharing and unload all good things, Doug, for us.
If I can just add one thing, Malcolm, before we get to Madison.
Yeah,
Rick McCutcheon, I put my email in the chat. If you want to get added to our meeting invite that we publish, make sure you don't miss any meetings. Just send me an email and you'll go into the block. And if you don't want it later on, just tell me to take it out. So that's what you can do. All right.
Are you guys all able to see my screen okay?
Looks good.
Perfect. Well, my name is Madison Zulowitz. I am the new event coordinator with Doug. So I just recently started with Doug. And my main role is helping with the local and regional meetup program. So I'm sure that you all will be seeing a lot of me, and I'm always a resource to you guys if you need anything related to your meetup program or just in general, anything Doug. So I'm going to do a quick introduction for Doug. Doug, or Dynamics User Group, is a free community for users, implementers, and resellers of Microsoft business applications. Our mission is to support all things Microsoft Dynamics 365, GP, and Power Platform. And the community is to help members excel and grow in their personal and professional careers. For rules of engagement, essentially what this is saying is that we would like these sessions to remain solely educational to help grow and network. So please know selling services and recruitment. We really try to keep these sessions solely educational. Dynamics User Group has lots of programs. So we have Doug Forums, which is a free online platform where you can ask questions, have open discussions. We have webinars, conferences, local and regional meetups. We have a team up program, Skill Up, and a YouTube full of sessions similar to this. Your session, if it's being recorded, will be posted on our YouTube channel as well. So it's really good to see other meetup groups all throughout internationally. So very cool to see. Now we have some regional Doug meetups. We just had our Ohio and Texas ones at the end of August. We have our Southeast Regional in Tampa, Florida, and this date is wrong. We are actually moving it to October 29th. And what more so pertains to you all is our Toronto, Canada meetup, which will either be in late November or early December. We are trying to work out the details now with the venue, and you guys will be the first ones to know about that. We're actually having a meeting with all of our leaders for that at the end of the day today. So more information coming soon, and I hope to see a lot of you all there if you're able to make it. We are also coming to Chicago, Illinois for our DynamicsCon in 2025. This will be from May 13th to the 16th. This will be a full day of educational sessions as well as networking. So if you guys have not been before, it is an awesome opportunity and can really help grow your network. Some updates is that we actually have a 50% off promo code going on now, and I will send a message in the chat with that 50% off promo code for DynamicsCon 2025, and our session submissions are also now open. So feel free to go get your tickets. The 50% off promo code is the most discounted that the tickets will ever be. So if you're looking to go, I would suggest getting them soon. And session submissions are also now open for DynamicsCon Virtual in 2024. This will be November 13th. It is a full day free event. The sessions are chosen by the community, and we usually have about 5,000 plus community members join. So again, focuses on multiple different products and a great day of learning. And that is all for me. Did anybody have any questions about Doug or anything that I can help answer?
I think the Madison, I think DynamicsCon online event, I think it closes today or this
The
week,
session
or
submissions
session
close today. Yep.
today.
Actually,
Last day, folks, if you want to get a session in.
we actually just updated it. So it is September 15th is when the session
15th?
submissions
Okay.
for virtual close. But try and get those in as soon as possible if you are interested. Yes, Sean.
Yeah, when does voting begin, or has it already begun for sessions for the virtual con?
I am actually not positive, but I will ask Liz, and Liz would know. I am still in the learning curve of Doug. As I said, I just started in the beginning of August, so might not know all of the answers to your questions, but I will certainly find it out for you.
I think they put once the window closes for submissions, I think they
Mhm.
compile them all so as not to give anybody a head start.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that is good. I tagged you in a chat message. Madison will get you the recording. For everybody else, the link to the YouTube channel that this meeting gets posted. Almost all of our meetings get posted there. Not all of them. Sometimes we mess things up, but generally speaking, they're always posted there. And so you can go get the content. And so with all of that said, I am excited to turn it over to our guest of honor, if you will, over to Will. And Will, the floor is yours to tell us, to educate us, to teach us all the things about data, fabric, and dynamics.
Right on. Yeah, thank you, Malcolm. I hope I'll do some justice to all the crazy data and AI stuff that's been going on the last little bit here. So let me just make sure I'm all set up. You guys can hear me okay, I'm presuming, right?
Looks good, sounds good.
Cool. Right on. So yeah, this is a presentation that I've been discussing with Malcolm and Rick recently, and thank you, Diane, Malcolm, and Rick for including me in being able to share this information with the Dun group. I'm really excited, obviously, to talk about this topic and share that with you guys. And the focus has been the last little bit around like, what does Microsoft Fabric offer for Dataverse customers? How does that relate to AI innovation? Obviously there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the sphere all the time. I know personally, like, it kind of feels like drinking out of a fire hose sometimes, because Fabric's got new updates, Azure AI's got new updates, Copilot's got new updates every month. So that's kind of what we're hoping to go through here is, you want to be able to power your own Copilot with your Dataverse data. Let's actually look at how you can actually do that. So let me make sure these are working. Cool. So this is kind of what I was thinking to go through today. Hopefully we'll get through all of it, and if we don't, I'm happy to discuss anything after with anybody. I'm going to kind of just go over Microsoft Fabric from a super high level business perspective to begin, just because I'm sure most people here have already read up on Microsoft Fabric, and if you haven't, that's okay. I can definitely give you more information, but just kind of wanted to go over things from a high level to start. And then what Fabric means for Dataverse customers, so talking about some of the cost implications, as well as the overall solution architecture that it affects. Then I'm going to show you guys how I connect Microsoft Fabric to Dataverse using one of the connection methods that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to kind of show you that in Microsoft Fabric platform. And then once that data is in there, what you can do with Azure AI innovation actually in Microsoft Fabric in the same pane of glass, so to speak. And hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end. Before we get into all that, just to formally introduce myself, my name is Will Hawkins. I'm the lead AI engineer and founder of Rightway AI, which is a data platform modernization and AI consulting and implementation company. We mainly serve Microsoft partners, ISVs, and customers, and basically, enabling their AI innovation, and of course, Microsoft Fabric as well. Anything in the AI and analytics and data sphere, since obviously they all kind of tie together pretty nicely. So that's who I am and what we do. Like I said, we're the experts on the Microsoft AI stack. So we build things that take a combination of Microsoft Fabric, Azure, and Power Platform, and leverage a combination of those stacks to actually create real-world applications of different AI initiatives. We've built custom copilots, cross-reporting solutions in Microsoft Fabric, kind of anything along the spectrum of AI data and analytics. So that's a little bit about who I am and who we are. And yeah, let's actually talk about Microsoft Fabric and what that kind of means for Dataverse customers. So this is, in a nutshell, what I think Microsoft Fabric, the key things for Dataverse customers is to know. It is what is essentially a platform, but it is a software as a service solution that's designed to integrate data management, analytics, and business intelligence solutions into that one platform. So you can kind of see here from the image, it's taking everything, data factories, data ingestion, being able to do manipulations with the data, pre and post processing, warehousing, cold storaging, archiving, reporting, also being able to build your AI models for the data scientists in the room. All that can happen under one, building essentially with the Microsoft Fabric platform. And one other way that I like to look at it is it's also kind of like SaaSifying big data in the cloud, since obviously, this is something that's been around for a while with Azure Synapse and Azure Data Factory and having all those pieces work together. So this is more of like the managed offering, I guess, that kind of encompasses all of those different things together. And for Power BI users, another way to look at it is it's kind of like Power BI Online version 2. except now you can do the entire data lifecycle from within the same framework. So that's kind of, you know, the basis for what it is, what it does, and, you know, the value that it offers outside of just regular old Power BI and some of the other capabilities. It's kind of a big orchestration of all of that lovely stuff throughout the data lifecycle. So what does this mean for Dataverse customers? There's quite a few things. You know, one, I think it really helps with the actual cost of storing your data. I was at a Fabric event a couple of days ago where somebody from Microsoft was talking about, you know, the cost of Fabric storage is roughly about 35 USD for 1 terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes, which is significantly less expensive than the cost of a gig in Dataverse. So that's obviously one of the key functionalities of it, is they've kind of solved the storage equation per se, and being able to store things at a much lower cost. So that's a key element of Microsoft Fabric. And then the other side of it too is, you know, you're actually being able to drop the total cost of ownership by using Microsoft Fabric, right? There was a Forrester report that was recently published where they talked about, you know, a 90% reduction in the time that data analysts, data engineers, people that were working on building those reports, building that data infrastructure, they don't have to spend as much time on integrating things because, and as you'll see shortly when we get there, you know, everything's under one lake or a lake house. So you can kind of put all of your data in one place. And that's obviously going to save you a lot of tying and binding and doing a bunch of different things with different data sets, which makes it usually a lot more complicated. And that obviously maximizes the interoperability of your different data sets, right? This is a Dynamics user group, so your CRM can talk and connect with any data set anywhere that has an API. You know, it can work with your HR data, your ERP data, your scheduling, whatever it may be. You know, you're allowed, or in Microsoft Fabric, you can connect those data sets using the Lakehouse model to your CRM, so you kind of get that holistic perspective on what's happening with the entire organization's data estate. And what's also really uniquely valuable about that is you can finally create one security model that goes across all of these data sources because they're all living in the same place, right? That was a challenge for quite a while when it came to data governance, is that, you know, you'd have to apply different security models for different data sources because of the nature of the data sets not living under the same roof. So that's another key consideration of it. And then of course the AI innovation, right? When you have that solid centralized foundation, you can develop AI capabilities much better because you're not making a call to this system and another call to this system and then transforming this data and this data into one thing to just give to the AI. You're actually just starting from, you know, a centralized holistic data set that you can use to kind of accelerate the pace of being able to do AI innovation. So how do you actually connect Microsoft Fabric and Dataverse together? There is a few different options: Azure Synapse Link, Fabric Link, the Dataverse API, TDS endpoint, and what's new in Microsoft Fabric, which is called mirroring, which I'll talk a little bit about in a bit. I know it can kind of seem overwhelming that there's a bunch of different options, and, you know, I know for sure it felt kind of like if you made the wrong choice at first, that was bad news. I tend to look at it more like, you know, they each kind of have their own superpowers or their own strengths and weaknesses, and you kind of just have to find the one that's best fit for the way that your Dataverse environment is set up and how you use that data overall. So let's look at Azure Synapse Link first, since this is probably one of the most established of the group, since that's been around pre-Fabric. So essentially what you're doing there is you're taking your Dataverse data, converting it into CSV files, and then that's passed off to Spark Synapse, which then can go ahead and convert those into the language of Lakehouse, which is called Delta Parquet files. So this has been around for quite a while, and one of the key benefits of it is that it provides a higher level of control over the data management and syncing, because you're actually able to do table by table syncing. You can do incremental refreshes as well. So you have that ability to kind of have a bit more control over what gets updated, gets updated and when it gets updated. It is moreover more expensive in terms of the compute charges, because again, it's Azure, so that stuff can add up quickly, kind of depending on how you structure the link. But the benefit obviously of that is that you can update your data in, you know, a pattern that works best for you, whether that's doing incremental refreshes, just doing a sync periodically. You just have that higher level of control than you would with some of the other examples that I'm going to show here in a minute. And then you have Microsoft Fabric Link, which essentially SaaSifies the Azure Synapse link, because instead of creating those CSV files and passing them through Azure Synapse, what Microsoft Fabric Link does is it actually links Dataverse and Fabric together by creating storage optimized copies of your Dataverse tables actually in your CRM. So this obviously revolves around less ETL, because you don't have to make an ETL connection. It's kind of already set up inside of the integration. It does have a bit more of development to happen, because it does take a while for the tables to sync initially. And from my last bit of knowledge, you can't do a table by table syncing. You kind of just have to sync the entire Dataverse environment all at once. But it does give you an advantage in terms of being able to access the data more quickly, right? Because you have that direct connection rather than going through the CSV to Synapse route. So you're able to pull data from the disk a lot faster. So for Power BI reports, that can result in faster refresh times. So there is a bit of a trade-off there. It does provide the ability to access your data when you're retrieving it a bit faster, but you have a little bit less control over what you can actually do with the syncing of the data. And then there's the Dataverse API, which looks like this super ugly mess right here. Essentially what this is an OData protocol endpoint. So it's taking your Dataverse tables and converting them into JSON form. So this gives you the ability to work with the raw data in the Dataverse tables directly. For somebody who's an engineer, that helps a lot, because I can do a lot of the transformations in flight rather than relying on kind of waiting for the data to land before I can actually do anything with it in my lakehouse. So it is a bit more complicated. I wouldn't say it's a citizen developer tool by any means, because you do actually have to really know how to process the JSON API. But if you're looking for a version of being able to access Dataverse that allows you to do a lot of transformations as the data is being moved, this is definitely a good option for that. So I would like to say it's probably for more extra complicated Dataverse environments where you might have a lot of custom tables, custom entities, things that require a bit more of a nuance than some of the other tools that are available. And then there's the TDS endpoint, which essentially is the SQL version of the Dataverse API. So again, you have access to the data through read-only form. That's something that the Dataverse API has as well. And this is great because you can actually execute SQL queries against the tables, as you can see here in this example. So if you're trying to do manipulations and stuff, you can set it up through a whole SQL script, which in a lakehouse is great because you have the ability to write SQL queries actually in the lakehouse. So if you want to do, again, bulk transformations, any kind of manipulations to the data, you can do that in flight with these tools. One thing to note is it does retrieve as much data as it can within a 5-minute timeout. So that's kind of something that you have to work around as you're using it. So obviously optimize the data that you're pulling from the endpoint within that 5-minute timeout. And then there is the new capability, which is Microsoft Fabric's mirroring. I personally have not worked with this, so I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of it since it's fairly new. But I know based off of the mirroring architecture, it's basically like a near real-time copy of the data that's being updated in your OneLake. So essentially it creates a read replica, same as some of the other systems within your lakehouse that's supposedly staying up to date as often as possible. And it works for Dataverse. They do it for Cosmos DB, Azure SQL, as well as Iceberg and AWS storage. So that's a new capability that they're rolling out that essentially allows you to do this without having a lot of code and a lot of stuff to manage. So I've got more information about that here in this link. So if you want to look through it on your own, that's definitely a possibility. So to kind of just encapsulate all that, since I know that's a lot of different options for a lot of different things, I think the key things to consider is, how many tables you have, how many of them are custom, the kind of transformations that you need to do, how often your data needs to be synced. And based off those questions, based off the answers to those questions, you're going to be able to kind of see like, okay, maybe I need to lean more towards Azure Synapse Link, or maybe I need to just go right to using the Dataverse API. And from experience working with clients, you don't necessarily have to choose one and be stuck with it. You can start with Fabric Link, and maybe it works well for some things and not for others. And you can, change and kind of combine different things depending on what's best for your Dataverse environment. this was more just to show you that you have a lot of options, but the key comes down to what works best for your business data and how that's set up in Dataverse. So now, yeah, I'm going to show you how I actually do this with connecting Dynamics 365 Sales to OneLake. Let me just get my window moved over here and let me know if you guys can't see it. Oh, 1 second. There we go. Should be able to see it. So yeah, essentially all I did was set up a Dynamics 365 sales trial. So this is all the stock data that you would expect in a trial. I've got my accounts. I can't really see the icons here, but I know leads and opportunities are in there as well as contacts. That's what we have here. So what I want to do is be able to take these tables and create Lakehouse versions of them so that I can actually use them within the Microsoft Fabric platform. So that's what I'm going to do here. I've set up this Microsoft Fabric workspace, and you can tell that it's a Microsoft Fabric workspace because it has this little diamond here, which basically says that it enables Microsoft Fabric content. So for anybody that's a Power BI developer or has used Power BI in the past, you can still have regular old Power BI workspaces. They just won't have the diamond associated with them. And what will happen is when you go in and look at new items, you won't see all of these various different tools because you'll just see the Power BI ones, so semantic models, reports, and dashboards. And that's really where you get to see the value of Fabric, is there's just a collection of so many different things within the platform that apply to every stage of the data lifecycle, right? You have stuff for pulling data in, you have stuff for storing data, you have stuff for preparing the data to make sure it's transformed and looks appropriate. You can do your model training in there as well, and then monitoring as well. So kind of everything, and of course those visualization capabilities that were in Power BI from the start. So there's really, you know, something for every part of the data lifecycle, which is part of what makes it super unique. So what I'm going to show you is the lakehouse that I've set up, just to kind of show you what happens when you're inside of that and what that looks like. So normal stock lakehouse, when you set it up, just has tables and files. Key thing to note is that you can put any kind of table in here that fits the Delta Parquet format. And what's really great is you can also put any kinds of files. Like I've got a PDF file in the same lake as my tables, and I can put CSV files in here. I can put JSON files. You know, obviously there's a limitation on the different file types, but you kind of get the point that, you know, any kind of data, whether it's images, documents, tables, numbers, whatever, can live within a lakehouse, and they all kind of sit in that one environment together, which is part of what makes it a valuable tool for connecting with your Dataverse environment. So now I'm going to show you what it actually looks like to move the data from Dataverse into Microsoft Fabric using what I've got set up here, which is called a Fabric Spark Notebook. So this is using the Dataverse API, and the reason I took this approach was just because it's a bit easier to move the data in without having to do a bunch of configuration stuff like that, especially for the trial that I'm on. So I'm not going to walk through each line of code because it probably won't all make 100% sense. But what I did want to show is, you know, basically I'm authenticating to my Dataverse environment using this access credential here. And then I say, okay, I want my accounts, I want my contacts, I want my opportunities, and I want my leads. And then here, this base path, this is me pointing at that folder here, what's called tables. If I scroll over, you can see the tables part there. So that's where it's going to go. I want it to land in there. So when I go down through the code here, that's basically what I'm doing in this part. You know, I'm just applying some really simple transformations, like converting things to string and filling out any nulls, just to make sure that when it saves the file as a lakehouse file, it's not going to crash. And then that's what's happening here, is I'm basically converting that table into a Delta table, which is essentially a lakehouse table. And there's all this really messy stuff down here, so I won't go through all that because that's all the code compiling. But what you can see if I go down to the very bottom is somewhere in here. Anyways, the point is you can actually see that those tables were converted from Dataverse tables into Lakehouse tables. And now I have them in my actual Lakehouse, right? So I got my accounts, I have my contacts, I have my leads and my opportunities all in the Lakehouse. And that's great. You know, I got my Dataverse data in, you know, that's all really fine and dandy and stuff like that. But what actually makes this really cool is now, okay, I have all these tables set up here. Well, what if I want to go pull in something like Salesforce data? I can do that in the exact same spot, right? I can go right into a data flow or a pipeline, whatever the best tool for the data is. And I can go to practically any source that I want and start pulling in that data, right? We've got SharePoint folders. You know, if I open up here, I can look at Dynamics. And there's connectors for Business Central as well as Customer Insights. Like I mentioned, there's Salesforce as well. And then, you know, even Google Analytics is in here. So Microsoft's kind of already built a bunch of pre-built connectors for getting those data sources into your lakehouse. I don't think they'll fit all of them, and that's part of where you can kind of develop your own stuff. That's a separate topic entirely, but you at least have the capability within your lakehouse to basically pull in any of those tables from any database that you want, and then, you know, set them within the exact same framework as your Dataverse tables. So you can actually have one data estate for all of your different data sets. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation. Before I keep going, any questions about that? I know I kind of went through a lot of stuff really fast. So if you have any questions or anything comes to mind, yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, that was awesome. Well, sorry, something popped up and I missed the piece when you were selecting the wizard to choose Dataverse data. Was that just using the TDS endpoint, or do you have to like modify anything along the way?
For the one where I pulled the data in through the code, you mean?
Yeah.
No. So basically, maybe to illustrate, I just have this function that says like, hey, I built like an application user that gets an access token. And then I'm feeding the access token in to here. And then I'm basically just saying, okay, find that entity name and then pull all of the data from it. And then I basically just turn it into a data frame so that I can save it as like a nice pretty table, right? So when I actually go down a little bit further, past all this gobbledygook, you can see, right, this is the accounts table. And other than there's this OData type column, which I'd probably get rid of if I was doing proper transformations, like all the addresses remain the same, the URLs, open deals. The table is essentially the exact same thing. It's just now in a format that is acceptable by Microsoft Fabric. So does that answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah, so that's awesome. But when you made that call, did that pull all the data? Or like wouldn't you have to paginate it, or does it not have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have like 10,000 rows or something like that, you would definitely have to be mindful of it. I can't remember the exact limitations of the Dataverse API. I'd have to go look at the document that I made, but it's similar. Like there's a rate limit of some kind, so you have to kind of navigate around that. I think it's a bit different than the TDS endpoints rate limit, but same kind of thing. Yeah, you'd have to structure it like that. I didn't have that problem because the accounts only has 5 rows, so I didn't have to deal with that this time. But yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely got its own limitations, and I can send something about that after if you want.
Very cool. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, if there's no other questions, just, you know, I guess kind of the key things to take away from all of that information is, you know, the cost of storing data in Fabric is oodles cheaper than storing it in Dataverse. That doesn't mean you have to put everything in Microsoft Fabric, but anything that's not really, you know, needed every single day, that might be something that you want to move into Fabric just to get your feet wet kind of thing. Like I mentioned, there's 5 different ways and probably more than that you can connect Fabric and Dataverse. So you kind of just have to find the one that works the best for your data structure, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And then once those tables are converted into Lakehouse tables, you can actually connect them to any other data set in your organization. Like, for example, I did a project where we had data coming from a CRM, data coming from an IoT sensor, and data coming from kind of a user management field software. And we were actually able to create a Power BI report that talks to all 3 of those data sets and puts all of that data into one report. So that's kind of what you would see as the end outcome by putting all these tables in that same place. And that makes things a lot easier when you want to go ahead and start developing your AI capabilities, because that's kind of what powers a Copilot with this OneLake data. So that's kind of what I'm going to go through. Now that you have all of your data in that lake house, whether it's in one lake house or multiple, depending on how you want to structure it, how can you actually do AI innovation in the exact same, window or pane of glass, whatever you want to call it, to start building, your own custom Copilot on top of that. So before I get into that, just a little bit of background. I'm going to be focusing on Azure AI services just for the nature of the customizations that I'm going to be putting in here. And Azure AI services, there's kind of a few. This is basically, the best way to describe each of them. Azure OpenAI Studio, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 years, that's where you can build GPTs and LLMs and do all the Gen AI stuff. Azure Machine Learning Studio for my data science friends. That's where you're building your machine learning models. That's been around for a while. Language, for text processing, speech for doing speech modeling, vision for doing any kind of vision activity, translation, document intelligence is for that OCR. So if you're doing any processing of physical documents, that's probably the tool you would use for that. And content safety is a new one. It's pretty cool. I actually really like it. You can actually set up kind of an overlying AI model that monitors your AI solutions to make sure that they're putting out the right output, that they're not getting hacked, a bunch of stuff like that. So that's kind of what lives within the Content Safety Studio. And they all live under this Azure AI Studio umbrella where you can kind of go in and do all this without needing to configure 8 different resources to try and put something together, like Frankensteining it kind of thing. So now I'm going to show you how I talk to the tables that I just put into Fabric using this Azure AI Studio capability. So let me just find my window for that, since I tend to get things all over the place. There it is. So I've got Azure AI Studio set up here just to show you guys what I've deployed. So hopefully you guys can see that okay. I basically just deployed GPT-4 Turbo, nothing special. I just said, hey, give me a model that I can use to start running some commands on top of this, right? Just made sure that it was working all hunky-dory. And now I want to actually use that in my Fabric environment. So I'm going to just go back to that notebook that I was working on and show you guys some really cool stuff. So this is probably, to me, what I think is the most valuable part of Microsoft Fabric is I'm in the exact same interface. I just pulled in all of my Dataverse tables. I just turned them into something that can talk to any other data set in the world, essentially. And now, in the same breath, I can actually load those tables and start asking questions about them using an advanced AI model, right? So this is a bunch of code that I've set up to just make a simple API call to my model. I would obviously simplify this if I was building an actual application, but for demo purposes, can you summarize the key insights from my data? So what I'm going to do here is make that request. So that's basically what's happening here is I'm just calling my OpenAI model. And you can see it comes back and gives me, a fairly descriptive description of all the data that's in my accounts table, right? That's what I asked it for here was, here's the data that I want you to look at my accounts table. It's able to tell me my geographic distribution of those accounts, the industries, company sizes, revenue, that's all great. It can tell me all of these descriptive statistics in plain language so that I don't have to be a data engineer or a data scientist to actually know what all of this stuff kind of means, right? And that's great. That's kind of like high level insights, good start. But I can actually go in and ask it for very specific things, right? So same table, how many, so this is the Dataverse accounts table. How many open deals do I have with a particular account called Trade Research? It's able to actually go and look at that table and let me know that Trade Research has 2 open deals. So I'm actually able to take the data from these tables and get an understanding of them without needing to bring on a data analyst or a data scientist. I love you guys, but you can do other things as well outside of helping people with these kind of questions. So you can actually interact with your data in a natural language, which is, to me, probably one of the coolest things that comes out of using these platforms. And then, as a final example, maybe I want it to kind of help me pick who I'm going to go after in terms of my leads. So what are my top 5 leads? You can see it goes through here. It's looking at some of the data, the indicators, right? You know, it uses revenue potential, priority, decision maker status, and it actually lists the leads that are probably the best for me to follow up with within my leads table based off of some decision criteria. And of course, you can customize it. Like, you know, I didn't do any system prompting or anything like that. This is just a stock out of the box large language model, but that would be something that you would do when you're building out an AI, a custom Copilot application, is you'd prompt it, set it up to give you kind of the information you're looking for in the way that you want it. You can see that it basically lists out the top 5 leads and how I should be going about pursuing them. And then just as a final example here, you know, I also want to know how many opportunities are in the qualify phase, just so I know, you know, what's going on with that data. And it's actually able to show its work, right? It goes through and explains, I need to find opportunities that are, you know, with this tag, and it identifies the rows. Obviously, it'd be nice if it actually had a GUID or some kind of thing that's easy to understand rather than just row 0. But the point is that you can actually take this large language model, take this data, fuse those into a business application, and have a custom Copilot that can chat on top of the data that you've now set up. And, you know, of course, you're able to put any kind of data you want into here. So really, you could take all of this data, put it into one lakehouse, and then start building out a custom Copilot on top of that that can talk about anything within your data set. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
This is sweet. So one question here is where was the connection made for Copilot to like access this data? Because right now you're hitting an API endpoint, but where was that connection made?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So if I kind of go up here, so what I'm doing just for the fact that it was a simple data set is I'm actually taking the data set, I'm turning it into a chunk of data. And then I'm passing it here, right? Like the data summary is happening here. So it's basically converting all of that data into a representation for the large language model. And then it's passing it in the prompt that I've set up to say, you know, here's all the data that you have access to. Go ahead and tell me this information. And this isn't exactly how I would do it if I was building out a full production grade application, because it's better to have it actually interact with the tables using like a SQL endpoint or something like that. But more for demonstration purposes, I just fed it a bunch of the data that was coming from the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because that was the question I've been trying to solve in Azure AI Studio is like I found the connections to data sources where it's like what you're pretty much trying to solve, which is like I have more than 5,000 records. Like, give me a summary of all my data. How do I get to that source? I've been curious about that, and that's been tricky.
Yeah, well, I guess to kind of, you know, offshoot onto a slightly different topic, I actually developed something with an ISV where we do that through using what's called it's a DAB, which stands for Data API Builder, and you can actually put it on top of a SQL database. And what this doesn't do, because it's just a large language model, but what you could do with what's called Azure OpenAI Assistants is you can actually train the assistant to make API calls, and you can have it, you know, take the user's prompt. So like if they ask, you know, how many accounts have more than 2 open leads, you know, you could set up that filter criteria to say, okay, search the DAB or the SQL database for any account that has more than 2 open leads. And then the large language model does the same summarization that it's done here, but the actual infrastructure of the application is calling the data without needing to call everything all at once. Because that's obviously the problem you face with large language models is they can't take, 5,000 rows of data all at once. Like that's not going to happen because of the limits of tokenization. So that's kind of a workaround there. I'm happy to talk more about that if you want to discuss it more in depth after. But yeah, that's what I would say to that. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. No, that's helpful. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Hopefully everybody's still awake. We got a couple more slides to go here. So let me just jump onto the key takeaways from all of that. So yeah, Microsoft Fabric can connect to Dataverse in a bunch of different ways. Once you've made that connection, you're able to convert the Dataverse data into lakehouse tables so you can unify all of your data sets. Once you've got that unified data platform, then you go ahead and actually build AI on top of it. And when you've built, then you can actually go ahead and develop a custom Copilot that leverages, you know, your data from all of your systems in a way that, you know, you can understand the data without needing to be a data scientist or a data engineer, if that makes sense. That's it. That's all I have for you guys today, and hopefully that all made sense. But yeah, if there's any questions, any comments, anything, feel free to chime in. So there's Q&A.
It's powerful stuff. I think that's what my takeaway. Because we hear a lot about the tools, but you don't think a lot about how do they work and what can we do to make them work for us. So this notion of build our own, Copilot, whatever we want to call it, build our own AI to interact with the data the way we need to interact with it is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions, comments? Rick?
What is Rick? What's Rick question?
How does Microsoft license this to you, Will?
So that's based off of so there's the Microsoft Fabric pricing model, which I can show you guys if you like. That's basically capacity based. So you pay like a monthly subscription for Fabric itself. And then the model that I use, the large language model, that's basically charged per run. So I can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head, but every time I make a request, I have to allocate quota, and then that quota costs X amount per run or something like that. So rather than you paying for the fee of having a built Copilot, you're paying for every time you're calling the AI capability. But then you actually have to build the interface so that you can use it without basically needing to know how to code, which is what I was showing, right? So hopefully that answers it. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I also wanted to add on that compared to using Power Automate or AI Builder, what Will just demonstrated costs like pennies, like fractions of a penny per run. It's like crazy cheap. You can run like a few thousand and like you won't even.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because Microsoft wants to charge you for all these. Sorry if there's Microsoft people on the call. Microsoft wants to charge you for all these Copilots, right? This eliminates a whole need for a lot of Copilots that aren't used for personal productivity if I do it at the Azure Lake level.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the trade-off, right? Like what I showed was you'd actually have to go ahead and build out your own, like you have the sandbox, but you'd actually have to build the thing on top of it. Whereas the Copilots that you can buy out of the box, you don't have to really do much outside of configuring it. You don't have to code all of the application and everything like that. So yeah,
but they can't do what you just showed us.
Well, yeah, it depends on how much Googling and ChatGPTing you do, but it's another option. That's the whole point. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Sorry, I realized I didn't even ask my question. So this was one, me and you were messaging about this a while ago, and one of my YouTube videos on it, somebody commented on the pricing, and I just thought this was helpful, where he said that if you purchase 1 year reserved compute and not the monthly pay as you go, he said for him it was like 40% cheaper over the total cost of the year, which still gets, because I've still been trying to answer like, is Synapse Link potentially cheaper than Fabric? And I still don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either. And again, I think it depends on the kind of data you have. But I did put the pricing table in here. This is for Canada Central. So regionally it might change, but like you mentioned, like you make the commitment. I think it's 1 year commitment, and it's 41% cheaper on all levels. And I can happily talk to you about the difference between an F2 and an F64, since they are dramatically different in expenses. So that can be another topic as well for another day. I see Nikolai. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I saw your hand was up.
We know him as Nico.
Oh,
yeah,
Nico.
just Nico.
Hey, Nico.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you're running this through an LLM, and it's all textual answers, and we all know that it's struggling to even generate a table. But if you want to go into something more visual, like give me a chart, give me something, a little bit more relevant for the user. But I'm assuming Copilot doesn't have anything built that way. And what else do you use for that? Have you played with that?
Yeah. So I know there's different tool like Project Sophia exists. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. That's like a very experimental thing. I personally haven't done much with that, but I've done visualizations with Azure OpenAI assistants, because that actually has built into it a what's the best way to describe it? Every assistant has a coder built into it, I guess. So basically what it does is if you say, like, you know, can you make a bar chart of the data in my table? It'll actually go and run a Python script to generate that visual and return the visual to you. So you can do that. You just have to use a different tool. Like the large language model itself won't do that, but Azure OpenAI assistants can for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Good question. Sweet. And I guess, you know, shameless plug, since we're coming to the end of things, I will be presenting at Dynamics Communities. So if anybody is going to that, I'll also be talking about similar topics to this there. So you're welcome to join those. I got a book coming out, hopefully at the end of the month here. So if you add me on LinkedIn, I'll have more to say about that later. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to present. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, if you guys have any other questions or anything you want to talk about, definitely let me know. I'm happy to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. Lots of really good information, a lot of really good comments in the chat. If you want to take a look, people appreciating your presentation and the format in which you presented it. So thank you for joining us. Thanks everyone for taking time to join us as well. Remember to go check out our user group and check out next month's session and get signed up for that. With that, thank you everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.